personally, I'd get one of those ETA power pots with the flex ring on the bottom, and I'd probably use a BIOS stove. In fact, if you have one of those pots and you want a BIOS stove, if you're emailing me, email me and tell me what you're going to use it for the ETA pot. I can make you a BIOS with a longer neck on it that works just fantastic. I did a video on it a while back when I did a test run on the kitchen stove. It'll boil, 2 cups of water in like a minute or less. It's ideal. Not good for simmering, but with that particular pot, it's so heavy. Bring the water up to a boil, put your stuff in, let it boil for a while, then blow the stove out, put the lid on. And that pot's heavy enough and big enough, you can probably cook most meals right in it just by putting the lid on. It's got a real nice lid. It's a fairly heavy pot, but for 2 people, I really like it. Now, if you're the type of person that likes to cook with a Heine pot, and when I'm talking about pots here, pots have a lot to do with what type of stove you use. Like this Heine pot. Now, you can't use a BIOS with this. The flames will go right up by it. You can't use a Sith. The flames will go right up by it, or a Sketty. But if you want to use a hardware cloth pot stand, you can use like an Esbit or an Ion. If you don't want to carry a hardware cloth pot stand, you can use a Blackfly 2, because it has a pot stand built right in, specially made for the bottom of this pot, or an IsoFly. Both work excellent for this pot. In fact, my #1 choice would be the Blackfly 2. #2 would be the IsoFly. And it works really well. It's really efficient, really easy to use, very forgiving. No preheat time on it at all. Set it and forget it type thing. Works great. Well, let's see. Where else can we go with this? If I were going to cook spaghetti, something right from scratch, and it was going to have to cook for like 15 minutes, and I'd use a fairly big pot and a Sketty. A lot of heat, really get a large amount of water up to boil fairly fast, and works real good for cooking large meals like that. Not for a group of people, for like 2 people, maybe up to 4 or 5 servings of spaghetti. I think I'd use a Sketty. It's a good hot stove and it burns a long time. It would be pretty much ideal for that situation. And on the other hand, if I was just carrying a garbage bag backpack and just absolutely Graham Weenie crazy, I'd probably go with an Elite, because that's a real good little stove. It's super lightweight, it's super cheap, and for one guy it'll work fine. A lot of people, that's the only stove they carry. Second choice would be a Mini Sith. A lot of people swear by the Mini Sith. They just love it. A little better stove, a little better in cold weather. And then just for general purpose, on the other hand, if you've never been backpacking or never been ultralight backpacking, or even more, have never used an alcohol stove and just want to get the feel for it, and believe me, you don't just buy a stove and go backpacking. You're going to have to use this stove and get used to alcohol, because alcohol has some things about it that you have to learn to get used to. For one thing, it's not good in cold weather or in the wind. And it has some preheat things that you have to get used to. There's a lot to it. But anyway, if I was just starting out, I'd just buy a Trek. Just a straight Trek. Or if I had a little extra money, I'd probably buy a Trek too. And just play with that. I'm not saying that'll be the stove that you end up using, but it's a real good stove to learn about alcohol stoves with. You can pick one up for $7, and they're fairly easy to use. And, if you use like a Kmart or a Walmart grease pot, almost ideal, especially for the beginner. Once you use it for a while, then you'll know what you like about it and what you don't like. But I've also found out usually the first alcohol stove you ever use is usually the one that for the rest of your life that's going to be your baby, because it's just like your first love. I mean, it's just once you get used to that stove, it kind of imprints on the psyche. You can buy a stove with a wick, which makes it a lot easier. Primer wick for the stoves you have to preheat, or you can just use a piece of aluminum foil or a aluminum cupcake cup as a primer. I prefer the ones with a wick because it's just easier, it's faster, it's just a lot neater. And then the wick stoves, are just easier than anything. They're really good on fuel, and they're just a dream. And this new Blackfly 2 that you can take apart it's the easiest stove I've ever built as far as using it. It's got good heat, it's easy to maintain, it's easy to fill. When you get done, just take it out, pull the top off, pour your fuel right back in the bottle. Well, I'm Kenny from Mini Bull Design. Get out and hike, take a friend with you. Find the stove you like and use it on a regular basis. And above all, have a great day. Bye-bye.